Good morning. Today, I want to spend some time with you to reflect on those lost on September 11th, the worst attack in American history. This year will be the 16th anniversary of these attacks. Now I know not a lot of you of my viewers were alive or understood the implications and what happened behind September 11th. So this video will be used to imagine what life was like in New York, and will also be used to thank our servicemen and women and military that protect this great country and let us live out our freedoms that we do today. Now, let's imagine what life was like on that fateful day America changed forever. It's a gorgeous Tuesday morning in September. You've gotten up in the morning, had breakfast, and are watching Today with Katie Couric on NBC. You've gotten yourself settled and planned out any errands you needed to get done, when suddenly you noticed a breaking news crawl pop up on the screen. Supposedly, a plane crashed into the Twin Towers. It was a big fire with smoke that can be seen all along the New York skyline. You simply passed this off as a problem with the plane, but stayed glued to the TV, knowing that America's financial landmark is damaged. And wondered, how could this happen? Those suspicions were shortly washed away by anger. You witnessed a second plane deliberately flying to the other tower, exploding and killing hundreds inside on live television. And all you could do was sit in shock. Now, a horrific feeling at this point sets in. These planes who were being crashed into the towers were no accidents whatsoever, but rather acts of terrorism. Another plane was hijacked. However, passengers fought to the bitter end to regain control. Terrorists on that plane were planning to aim for our nation's capital. Luckily, our president was not inside. Instead, the plane crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Another plane was yet also hijacked and was crashed straight into the Pentagon, a source of America's military. You realize this is no accident. America truly was under attack. Meanwhile, back in New York, the towers that were burning eventually collapsed, effectively killing a beautiful landmark of New York, a financial symbol of America. To take your mind off the attack, you try to switch to ESPN to watch a recap of Monday Night Football with the Broncos and the Giants, only to realize that they're showing ABC, which is showing the same acts of destruction and death on live television that NBC showed. All you could do was sit in pure shock at how this happened. Meanwhile, in New York, our servicemen and women, police and fire departments were trying to piece together what happened. When the buildings collapsed, New York firefighters immediately rushed in to try to rescue as many people trapped in the rubble as possible. Many families before the collapse were watching a scene that many people could say could be compared to a disaster film. A few people, even George W. Bush himself, compared it to hell. The innocence of the past is gone. America was brought to its knees that day. Families stayed huddled around their TVs. Children are confused, scared for their parents, not realizing some of them were killed in this tragedy. Later that evening, our president got on TV to address a nation that was effectively bleeding out. He made clear that night that when he finds those responsible, a war will be put on the Middle East, a war that he would call a war on terror. When he finds the terrorists responsible, they will be brought to American justice. I'm going to read some quotes from his speech now. 3 days after the attack, Bush visited Ground Zero. It was an emotional scene that day. Probably the most iconic quote of his was here. "I can hear you. The rest of the world can hear you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon." Terrorist attacks can shake the foundation of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of the American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we are the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in this world. And no one will keep that from shining. Bush knew and made clear that night that America would rise above. With a president like him at the helm, American leaders encouraged many people who were essentially just trying to stand up to return to their lives. Patriotism was returning to a hurting nation. It was seen everywhere across America. An NHL preseason game between the Flyers and the Rangers showed George W. Bush's speech when he attacked.
Including American citizens you have unjustly imprisoned. Protect foreign journalists, diplomats, and aid workers in your country. Close immediately and permanently every terrorist training camp in Afghanistan and hand over every terrorist and every person in their support structure to appropriate authorities. The Taliban must act and act immediately. They will hand over the terrorists, or they will share in their fate. I also want to speak tonight, and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. Our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. Of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated. Americans are asking, why do they hate us? They hate our freedoms, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote and assemble and disagree with each other. They want to overthrow existing governments in many Muslim countries, such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, of Asia and Africa. These terrorists kill not merely to end lives, but to disrupt. We're not deceived by their pretenses to piety. We have seen their kind before. They're the heirs of all the murderous ideology of the 20th century. Unmarked grave of discarded lies.
NFL games had players and fans displaying red, white, and blue through every stadium in America. Some players wore cleats with gloves saying never forget September 11th. Teams even had police and fire departments as guests during the game. They even helped stretch the American flag across the field before the game started. A few teams even ran out onto the stadium waving little American flags in their hands. WWE's own Vince McMahon gave an impassioned speech basically saying we will not live our lives in fear, as a Fanta advertisement interrupts it all. I will play that speech right now.
the spirit of America lives here in Houston, Texas. On behalf of everyone here in the arena and a worldwide television audience, we would like to extend our condolences to the victims and the families and friends of the victims of the terrorist acts that occurred on Tuesday in New York City and Washington, D.C. Our nation's leaders have encouraged us to return to living our lives the way we normally do. Our nation's leaders have encouraged us to continue to live our lives the American way. They've encouraged us to practice and exercise our constitutional rights. And as such, tonight I believe this is the first public assembly of its size since the tragedy of Tuesday. Make no mistake about what, and make no mistake about the message this public assembly is sending to terrorism tonight. And that message, quite simply, is that we will not live our lives in fear. The citizens of Houston are not afraid. The citizens of Texas are indeed not afraid. And by God, the citizens of the United States are not afraid. For we are a proud people, proud of who we are, proud of our nation, and damn proud to be Americans. And we will fight. We will fight for our families. We will fight for our rights. And we will fight for our great nation. America's heart has been wounded. But her spirit shines as a beacon of freedom that never has been nor ever will be extinguished. The World Wrestling Federation would like to thank each and every one of you here in the Compaq Center tonight. The World Wrestling Federation would like to thank each and every one of you watching on television. We would like to thank you for the honor and privilege of performing before you here tonight.
NASCAR fans after 9/11 were probably the most patriotic. One late Sunday afternoon in September, NASCAR returned to the first state of America, Delaware. That day, it was an atmosphere, a sea of red, white, and blue. Cars were decaled in American colors. Teams carried American flags in their pit stalls. The broadcast showed many shots of the World Trade Center, the scene in New York, the scene in the Pentagon, and cutting back between those two shots and the track. The morning before the race, one of the drivers led everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance. Lee Greenwood even gave a performance of his song, God Bless America. The winner that same afternoon drove an American flag around the track in what many NASCAR fans consider the Polish victory lap. The days following the attacks were a symbol of resilience, which is what Americans do best, and which is why I love this great nation. We rose above Pearl Harbor. We rose above Vietnam. We rose above JFK being shot. We rose above Columbine. And we will rise above everything until every single one of us is dead. I would like to take this time to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Before I end today's tribute, I want to say thanks to our servicemen and women who protect America and make it safe to live in. Make our cities safe so we can walk outside and say hi to our neighbors, so little kids can play in the streets without fear of being attacked for being different. I would also like to thank our military for fighting for our freedoms. Our freedoms that we can share by going to school, doing what we can do best after school, talking with our friends, living with our parents, going to school, getting a good education so you can have a good life, and the best freedom of all, living in this great country of ours. I will end this tribute with Lee Greenwood. There will be no other videos, any gaming or stop motion or anything else, as this is a perfect day to reflect on September 11th. This song is going to be dedicated to those who lost their lives 16 years ago today. God bless America. Please stand and hold your right hand over your heart right now, as I will do the same.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you for taking your time out of today, out of your morning, to reflect and pay respects to those lost on September 11th. There will be no other videos that you normally expect on my channel for the rest of the day, because this is a day in American history that changed many of our lives forever. Hopefully this video instilled patriotism back in some of you guys. I went every September 11th, every morning on that day when you wake up on September 11th, I want you to look outside towards the sun, put your right hand over your heart like I just did, and play God Bless America. Thank you. Have a good rest of your Monday, and God bless America.